Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have seen it. The Des Moines, Iowa Register poll, or the Seltzer poll, whatever you want to call it, has officially been released after all the hype and talks of this poll supposedly showing a huge shift. You know, a couple days before the poll released, a bunch of Democrats had already released what the results were likely to show. There was a bunch of talk about it being so good for Kamala Harris, and of course that's exactly what the poll showed. Supposedly a more than 10-point shift in Kamala Harris's favor. All of a sudden, deep red Iowa is not only in play, but it's Kamala territory. And so, of course, the Blue Anon shills, the leftist Twitter crew, the leftist X crew, whatever you want to call them, is celebrating across the platform, and the leftist media is joining in on the celebration.
The other breaking news, the Des Moines Register is out with a brand new poll conducted by J.N. Selzer's firm. This, as you know, is the gold standard of polling in Iowa, and it shows Vice President Harris with a 3-point lead over Donald Trump in that state.
This would be, if this actually happened, Harris ahead by 3 over Trump in Iowa. That would be an 11-point shift for Harris in Iowa.
They're now suggesting that probably all the polls are wrong, most likely overestimating Trump's support, and apparently now Kamala Harris is going to win this thing without a hitch. The prediction markets or the betting markets are all starting to flip. Kamala Harris is now taking the lead in many important swing states, and even for a brief second on the Kalshi betting market, she even took the lead as the favorite to win the election, and all of this over one outlier Iowa poll. Interesting, now isn't it? Now obviously we've got some stuff to talk about. Let's just say I'm not buying into the hysteria. Nope, not at all. I think this Des Moines Register poll is a complete outlier, and frankly I think what's happening here can probably only be described by one word accurately, and that is hopium. Let's have a conversation, we've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, I'm sure you guys have seen the poll. Supposedly Kamala Harris is up +3 in Iowa, a huge flip in the state, supposedly coming from older women in the state who are the highest propensity voters, and the explanation, of course, abortion rights. J.N. Seltzer, the actual pollster here, explains what she thinks is happening.
The gender gap is a big issue in this election, isn't it?
It is a big gap, and I'd point you additionally to the margin that Kamala Harris wins older women with. It's a 2-to-1 margin among women age 65 and over. And so there's obviously something going on here. Older people is who you want to appeal to because they're the most reliable voters. And Kamala Harris is doing very well with that group.
And what did this poll tell you about independent voters in Iowa?
Right. And independents in Iowa do sort of switch back and forth. In this poll, they're solidly behind Kamala Harris.
And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he was still on the ballot in Iowa, wasn't he?
He is still on the ballot, so we still test him. And he's, I think, now at 3 percentage points. And there's a few percentage points in play. You'll note that neither of the major candidates gets to 50%. So there's still a little squishiness in what could actually happen come Tuesday.
That's interesting. And one of the respondents in your poll, they talked about abortion, didn't they? How much have those reproductive health issues come up in this polling?
Well, we know that among the people who are Democrats, the people who say they're supporting Kamala Harris, the issue they say they're thinking about most is democracy. At about half of them saying that's the most important thing. But then half of that, about 25% roughly, say abortion. And Iowa has one of the strictest abortion laws in place. It just went into effect over the summer. So it's a 6-week ban. After 6 weeks, you're not allowed to get an abortion in Iowa. And that may well have played a part in this. We don't have precise data in this poll to tell us more than that.
And you know, it's nice and all, it's a nice sentiment, but who's really buying this crap? I mean, seriously, first of all, my initial reaction is really abortion? That's going to be the top issue that's going to decide Iowa? I simply can't believe it. First of all, the 2022 midterm election was the abortion election, right? That was the election that came fresh off the Supreme Court draft leak, where the issue of abortion was sent back to the states. That's where you would have expected the abortion issue to be at the top of the priorities list. But what happened in Iowa in the 2022 election? Republicans sweeped every single race. Here we have the Wikipedia page for the 2022 Iowa elections, and as you can see, they voted for their Republican governor at a near 20% margin. The only race that was even close was the Attorney General election, but in that case, the Democrat Attorney General was the incumbent. In other words, for Attorney General, they flipped from blue to red. But the argument is that Iowa has placed restrictions on abortion, and now all of a sudden that's making a huge shift in the state. But I struggle to wrap my head around that, considering in 2022, when abortion was at the top of the ballot, they voted in all Republicans. If anything, that shows that the actual will of the electorate was to vote for Republicans who would obviously be tougher on the issue of abortion. It's almost as if they voted for abortion restrictions. But now, all of a sudden, in the span of 2 years, you mean to tell me that the state is completely flipped on that issue? I don't know about you guys, but it seems rather unbelievable. A lot of it seems completely unbelievable. Then, of course, if we delve into the crosstabs, you'll see that, supposedly, Kamala Harris is winning with women by a huge margin. Here I have the Des Moines Register poll showing Kamala Harris winning with women voters by 20 points. But if we take a look at the Washington Post 2020 exit poll data, women in the state were essentially tied at 48% for Trump and 51% for Joe Biden. So again, you mean to tell me that in a matter of 4 years, women have shifted left by nearly 20 points? It seems rather unbelievable. It seems like the methodology here might just stink, and I know the Democrats keep repeating that the Seltzer poll is the gold standard of polling, but I'm getting the feeling, honestly, that this poll is completely off the mark. Mrs. J.Ann Seltzer here is suggesting that the Iowa electorate is shifting leftward at an astonishing pace, but analysis of voter registration trends in the state show the exact opposite. Take a look at this. This is every county in Iowa, where the first column shows 2020 voter registration advantages, and the second column shows 2024 voter registration advantage, and pretty much across the board, Republicans have made significant gains in voter registration. In fact, the total averages of the state has gone from R+1 to R+10. Doesn't exactly seem like a big leftward shift. In fact, it seems like the exact opposite. It all just seems rather unbelievable. I mean, let's just go back in time to the first election of this election season when it was Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. This is what the polling outlook looked like. Pretty much an average +10 lead for Donald Trump in the state, with the last Des Moines Register poll showing Trump leading by 15 points. How is it even remotely possible that this race has flipped to such a degree? Looking at all these double-digit Republican leads from not even a year ago, then switching up to the latest Seltzer result, is rather unbelievable. I think this poll kind of fits the description of an outlier poll, especially considering the moment this poll dropped, Emerson followed it up with their own poll, showing Trump in the lead by nearly 11 points. And look, call me crazy, but Emerson also happens to be a very good pollster. I don't know, obviously everything's up in the air, anything can happen, but personally I just have a hard time believing that a ruby red Republican state all of a sudden in 2024 is flipping by over 10 points to vote for possibly the worst Democratic candidate ever over the issue of abortion, which, as we know, isn't even really in the top 5 of issues in a lot of the polls that we've seen. It just seems completely unbelievable. I'm more inclined to believe that this is an outlier rather than anything else. I know people are hitting the panic button, but personally I'm not. Am I nervous? Absolutely. I think everyone's a little nervous and on the edge of their seat. The suspense is absolutely freaking killing me, but I'm not panicking because what I'm seeing across the board outweighs this one single outlier Des Moines Register poll. I mean, just think about it. This is the only piece of good news, pretty much, that the Democrat base has received in weeks. We've seen the early voting data. Democrats are falling well beyond their targets. And essentially, we've seen every single swing state move in one clear direction, and that's towards Donald Trump. So I just have a hard time buying into this ridiculous hysteria that one outlier Iowa poll somehow magically undoes everything that we've seen and analyzed over the last couple of weeks and even the last couple of months. It just frankly seems ridiculous, and I'm not buying into it, not even a bit. I think Trump's going to win the state of Iowa, and it's not even going to be close, and honestly, I think there's a higher chance that Donald Trump wins Virginia than Kamala Harris winning Iowa. But hey, what do I know? I've been wrong before, and so I guess we'll just have to see. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.